stadium lights, the flipping buzz before halftime. My heart racing like it's 4th and 5 on a Midwest Saturday night.
Welcome back to another episode of the Mizzou Storytellers podcast. Another week, another guest co-host. Loretta Jones has joined the podcast.
Thank you. Please hold your applause.
They are applauding as they're driving around Missouri or the country. We have millions of subscribers. They're all listening right now, and they're like, who the heck is this person?
That's a valid question.
Loretta is the Senior Director of Letter Winner Engagement and Tiger Funds. That's one of the longest titles we might have in the athletic department.
Well, I don't know what to say about that.
Well,
I didn't create it, but I'm happy to have it.
It's a good one. You should own it. Okay, so explain exactly what you do here at Mizzou.
So the simple explanation is I get to do all the cool stuff and hang out with the cool people.
Sounds good to me,
the
especially
details,
today.
Yeah. The details are I do all of our letter winner engagements. So anything that has anything to do with our athletic alumni. So special events, Hall of Fame, reunions, National Hall of Fames. I've gotten to go to the College Football Hall of Fame twice.
Yes,
in Las
you
Vegas,
have.
so that was pretty amazing.
Oh, and that reminds me of a great story we have to share.
Oh, yes.
I think I've actually told it on the podcast before, but now you're here.
And I was there.
And you were there, so we'll share that for later.
Yes, and I do all sport-specific giving, so that's what our Tiger Funds are. That's our sport-specific giving.
Yeah, so we call it letter winners here, and I always catch myself because I'll say like alumni or former player, and then I like, oh, that's not what we call it here. It's letter winners, which is pretty unique. I like it.
And letter winner is going to be your athletic alumni specifically that earned letter awards.
Right.
So they competed enough or were able to receive whatever the letter award was for each year that they were on the team.
Right.
It has come to encompass all athletic alumni.
Yeah.
Because it would include, we call them our sports participants, of which I was one. I did not actually.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Come on.
But it's going to be your athletic alumni that did not earn letters, but were still on the team.
Sure.
And we want them to be included and celebrated as well.
Absolutely. And this is something that, now I can't speak for any time before I was really around, but it does seem like in the last few years, Mizzou and athletics specifically has really embraced former athletes, and I think much more cognizant of reunions and getting people to football games, big weekends, basketball games, and you're the touchstone for all of those people.
Absolutely.
And I think you're really responsible for it too. And it's so cool to be part of those moments or those reunions that we've had, and everybody knows you, and because of you're pulling everybody back and together, which is it's such an important thing to do. And I'm always struck when I talk to some of those letter winners, former players, and they're like, man, like this is so great because we went years without this happening, and we kind of felt like maybe we were forgotten a little bit. And last year with the baseball team was at the 96 baseball team that won the Big 12, and Big 8, I'm sorry. Yes, it was the last year of the Big 8. And they got their championship rings. And I was so fortunate I got to be there with you to hand them out. And it almost, I mean, not every player, but most of them were there.
Yeah.
And Coach Jameson was there, of course. Carrick came by, of course, and visited. John Cohen, who was the AD at Auburn, was there because he was on that staff. It was such a neat moment. And those guys were so touched that Mizzou did not forget about them and brought them back.
Yeah, and that when I interviewed for the job, that was one of the things that the administration told me they had prioritized.
Yeah,
was they wanted to include their alumni. They wanted them to feel welcome back. They wanted this to feel like it was home.
Yeah,
and that's become one of our guiding messages to our alumni is this is home. Doesn't matter how long you've been gone, where you've been, what took you away. We always want you to come home.
Yeah, absolutely. I will, and I don't have to remind you of this. So last year during the football season, we celebrated the 2013 football team that won the SEC East, of course, and played in the SEC championship game. And those players that came back, they reminded me, and I'm sure they reminded you, don't forget, we also won it in 2014.
And we are planning that one as well.
So that's what happens when you have, a run of success like we did under Coach Pinkel. So another person who you've got to know pretty well. And
he was
really
my first trip to the College Football Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. And then we had J-Mac last year, and it was awesome. And we'll see next year or the year beyond. So, but you're here today to help co-host our podcast, and we've got a really good guest. Some of you know well. It's tall day on the podcast between you and our guest, who we'll get to, and producer Steve. I feel like a dwarf or whatever politically correct word we can say.
It's definitely one thing you can't teach.
No.
Yeah,
is height.
absolutely.
So,
No.
there you
Well,
go.
Loretta, your height came into play during your college career,
Yes,
and you were a volleyball player here at Mizzou.
I was.
Tell us about your experience playing volleyball at Mizzou.
I had some of the most amazing coaches ever. I had Wayne and Susan Krecklow, who are being inducted into the Mizzou Athletics Hall of Fame
That's
this
right.
year.
This fall.
They were everything. You know, I'm from back in the day when we didn't start doing any real recruiting talk until my junior or senior year of high school.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't commit to Mizzou until, man, it was probably like February or March of my senior year of high school, which is
Yeah.
just totally insane nowadays. Nobody would ever believe that now. I think kids would get anxiety thinking about that. But I came, and it's because I had a connection. My college coach knew them from the volleyball world. She had played volleyball. Actually, both of my high school coaches, had played volleyball at Mizzou.
Uh-huh.
And so we came to team camp every year. And I remember the first year that we came to team camp, my junior year of high school, which was the first year I even thought about playing in college. I had no idea who Wayne was, like absolutely none.
Uh-huh.
And I, being tall, as producer Steve probably also knows, you have a lot more sore joints and knees and ankles. And so I'm hobbling back from the Hearn Center to the dorms with a bunch of ice all over me. And this guy drives up in a van. This story is starting to sound.
Where are we going with this?
But he drives up with me and my teammate, and he says, "Hey, do you guys need a ride back to the dorm?" And I said, "Yeah, that sounds great." And we hop in, and I recognized him from the camp. I knew he was one of the coaches at the camp. Let's preface that before I go any further. And we just started chatting. He said, "Oh, you play at Sion, Notre Dame de Sion High School in Kansas City. Your coach is Mary Lyle." And I said, "Yeah, how do you know all of that? You know, what do you?" And I get back to the dorms, and Mary, my coach, said, "Oh, I saw Wayne dropped you off." I said, "Yeah, who is that guy?" And she said, "He's the head coach at Mizzou, Loretta." And I said, "Oh, that's cool. He was really nice."
Yeah.
And I think from then on,
That's a pretty cool story. Right
that's
there.
when it was like, "Oh, this is a really, like, I could go there. That would
Yeah.
be fun." And so I walked on. Don't regret a minute of it. I
Yeah.
walked on. I really wanted to go into journalism.
Mhm.
So obviously this was the top choice. And I was just lucky enough to be able to be on the volleyball team as well. I did that for 2 years before it just became too difficult with schoolwork and volleyball at the same time. Candidly, I wasn't playing much.
Yeah.
So that played a part in the decision, and not in a negative way. It was just, this is what I'm here for, is school. To the Krecklows, they were amazing.
Yeah.
I left the team, and I worked camps for them every summer until last year, 2 years ago, when I got this job, or until they left in 2018. And they were invited to my wedding. They were job references for me. I still keep in touch with them. They're amazing.
I just saw them on the patio having some pizza at Shakespeare's.
I thought you were going to say Southside.
No, at Shakespeare's a couple nights ago. I was picking up some pizza, and they were there just living their best life.
They always do.
They really were.
They're just, they're great humans.
Yeah, I've known them back since the Columbia College days, because when I was at the Tribune, we covered all of their matches because they were winning national titles. I went to the national championship games when they won their first one at, I think, Olivet Nazarene and outside Chicago.
Oh, was that before they moved it to Iowa, to Sioux City?
Yeah, it was up there.
yeah.
And I mean, it was a long time ago, obviously. But I mean, yeah, they are great. And just to like pull the curtain back on the Mizzou Hall of Fame, when we voted back in the fall, I guess, or whenever we did that, I don't know.
We were February.
February. Gosh, it seems like longer ago. Anyway, the debate was, do we induct them separately or together
as a unit?
We had. I mean, they're a tandem. They are the Krecklows.
It's Wayne and Susan.
Wayne and
Wayne was the
Susan.
head coach, then Susan was the head coach, then Wayne was the head coach.
Right.
I mean, it was just they played dual roles all the time.
Yeah.
But the respect that we had for both of them never wavered, no matter what role they were in.
Could you imagine working every day with Dave Jones, sharing an office?
Absolutely
Your husband.
not. Absolutely not. We.
That's why they're Hall of Famers, because they did it as
No.
husband and wife in
No.
the office together.
We could not be any more opposite.
Well,
so no.
Molly Matter and I we could do that great. It'll be no problem at all.
I have no words for that.
I'm joking.
I'll
No,
have to check that with
I-
Molly Matter later.
We enjoy our time together at home, so I think it's healthy for most couples to.
There's something to be said about being able to go home and have a wholly objective third party listen to your rants and then cut you off and say, let's move on.
I get cut off a lot. A lot.
I just get
happen.
zoned out.
Yeah.
Are
It's
you going
like,
to
do you
keep
have any-
talking about this, or do you want me to just keep sitting here?
I get to, like,
okay.
give any stories that aren't about Mizzou sports. I'm like, well, that's kind of all I did all day.
Well, yeah. How is it? He definitely, when he says how is work, he's ready. He's ready.
Yeah.
Dave's a good man. He's got a great name, too. Okay, enough about us. I think we should get to our guest.
You guys
You
are
ready?
Yeah.
good and warmed up for the guests.
I think so.
Right.
Pretty much
Yes.
out of Loretta Storytellers right there.
I
That's-
know.
That's great.
I know. I know.
So,
I know.
just
We'll
to
see
see-
where
this
just
is
to
like a
preview you guys,
2-for-1
I'm just saying.
situation
We'll
here.
see where
This
this
is
goes.
great.
All
Yeah.
right.
This episode of Mizzou Storytellers on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast is brought to you by Shelter Insurance. Ranked number 1 in customer satisfaction for auto insurance in the central region by J.D. Power 5 out of the last 6 years. We're your shield. We're your shelter.
He's a leader, a swimmer, a Chicago native, husband, father, and an outside-the-box thinker. He's the man behind ZOU-STYLE. He is Andrew Grevers, head coach of the Mizzou Swimming and Diving Program. Welcome to Mizzou Storytellers, Coach.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you all having me on.
You're a veteran of the Mizzou podcast, right?
I've done a few.
You've done a few.
Done a few.
So this is very natural for you.
We're getting there.
We're getting there. Okay.
Practice helps.
Well, we're happy to have you here. It's an exciting time for swimming because we got the Olympics coming up. We'll touch on that a little bit, just how your program is contributing a little bit to the summer games coming up. But we just want to kind of tell your story and get to know you a little bit better, have our fans get to know you a little bit better. And we like to kind of start at the beginning with these stories. And for you, it starts in the Chicago area. Is that right?
That's right.
Lake Forest?
So grew up in Gurnee.
Okay.
My folks had a 5-acre plot of land, and it was, unique in the fact that we had chickens. When I was really young, we had a horse and a pony. And we were a bike ride away from Six Flags Great America. So,
Wow.
so that's my youth, right? A lot of time with my siblings, older sister, younger brother in Gurnee, and a lot of bike rides to the Six Flags.
Yeah. Yeah. So anytime you have a Chicago person, you have to ask, so it's Cubs or White Sox?
Cubs.
Cubs, no
Good.
doubt. There
That's-
was no
that's the right
hesitation there at all.
I don't
Producer
under-
Steve approves.
Is that
I don't know how there is
difficult in the
another
land
option.
of the St. Louis Cardinals?
You know what? I keep my head down. I don't wear the Cubs gear around here very often.
Yeah.
I've
probably smart.
wondered if I ever had to throw out a pitch or so. Should I sabotage it and maybe pull off the Cardinals jersey on the way off? No,
Turn
I don't
heel?
know if that'd go over too well.
Depends
Probably
on how
not.
good the pitch was.
Yeah.
It would go viral, but you may not be invited back.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. But you came from a family of swimmers. Let's talk about your family a little bit. And your parents from the Netherlands.
That's
Is that
right.
right?
That's-
Came straight over.
My dad
They
came
grew up there?
over when he was like 19 or 20.
Okay.
Moved to South Carolina. The story I've been told a few times is he worked 100 hours a week for $100 a week. That was his introduction to the United States over there in South Carolina. Worked his way through Michigan. Horticulture degree. I don't know. I don't remember where he got it, but I think Michigan State
Okay.
is along the lines. Made his way over to Chicago. Got a job with a landscaping company. Where he became a landscaping architect.
Yeah.
Had a relationship with my mother before he moved to the States, and
Okay.
lots of letters, handwritten letters back
Oh,
in the
wow.
day, right? A few visits home. They kind of maintained the relationship, and slowly but surely he convinced her to come to the States. So I
Wow.
think he'd been here for like 3 or 4 years. I think 3 years before she followed him over.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, they put some roots into the Chicagoland area. My mother was a swimmer. She was a member of the Olympic training team. So I
okay.
don't necessarily know how they figured out who got to go, but
Yeah.
she was training for the Olympics but didn't quite make the cut to be invited. My dad was more of a water polo player, but both strong swimming. Again, different over in Europe, but the foundation for how and why they met at the pool was the easiest way to shower on a daily basis over there in the Netherlands was tapping into to the pool, right?
Okay.
Because that was a way to do it every day.
Whatever it takes, I
So,
guess.
I mean, this is, they're in their 70s now, so this is a while ago. But yeah, that's kind of how they met. It's a pretty fun story.
Yeah,
So
that
then,
is good.
then from at a super young age, did they encourage you guys to swim, or did it just come naturally?
Right, yeah, I mean, so that's a great question. So my mom, she came over here, not speaking a lot of English, got into being a swim instructor. So she taught lessons
Okay.
in the Chicago area. And that went really well. And she clearly had a knack for it. So my parents, being the business savvy people they are, making investments, they built a pool. They built an indoor pool in our backyard in Gurnee.
Wow.
I remember that's like one of my first memories because I was probably about 4 or 5. Probably 5 when it was finished. My dad did a lot of the work, which is pretty crazy to think about. But we had a pool built by the time I was 5. My mom taught lessons out of that pool.
Wow.
And I started teaching lessons myself by the time I was 8.
Oh my gosh.
And that's kind of the fun story here is I have been coaching or instructing in the sport of swimming every year of my life since I've been 8 years old.
Wow.
So how many years
that
is
is
that?
34 years.
We don't get into ages on the
34
podcast.
years of swim instruction now.
That's amazing. Now, is that pool still there?
It
If you would go to your parents'
It
house?
is. That house went up for sale like a year ago, and I was just flipping through all the photos, thoroughly enjoying, going down that memory lane. I mean, I hadn't been there since I was 13 years old. That was the last time I was at that house. So, but that was a fun first 13 years.
That's incredible. Yeah, I would think so. It's
Then we
like-
moved to Lake Forest.
Yeah. Your siblings, younger brother,
Older sister.
we'll get to him.
Yeah.
Older sister now you played other sports, but everybody kind of gravitate towards swimming.
Yeah, I was the most into all the other sports.
Okay.
Loved soccer. Liked baseball, but was so bad at it. I mean, I could not hit a ball for the life of me. Was good at tennis like that, volleyball, track and field. Did a little ice hockey in the winter, so I kind of did it all.
Yeah.
I'm sure I've leaving a bunch out there, but my sister was the one that was just good at swimming. Did a summer league. My mom was smart enough not to force us, and she wanted us to ask for it, right?
Yeah.
Pretty smart. My sister went in and just dominated, and my brother and I are like, we can do that. We can win races. That looks fun. So I think I started swimming when I was like 8 or 9, doing the summer league stuff. But yeah, that's the Gurnee times.
Yeah, when you've got a pool in the backyard, it's like, okay,
true.
well, I guess I don't have a choice.
Absolutely.
It's true.
And then
Very true.
when did you make the switch to just swimming?
So even freshman year in high school, that was Warren High School in the Gurnee area, I did swimming and soccer that year. When we moved to Lake Forest, and that was the end of my freshman year. So we were commuting from Lake Forest to finish up the school year at Gurnee, at Warren High School. And when I started sophomore year at Lake Forest, that's when I just did swimming during the swimming season, and then I did water polo in the spring, just for a little change of pace, but kept it in the water. It was fun.
Did I was like asking people that moved on to college athletics, at what point, as you're a high school athlete, do you realize, oh, I think I have a chance to do this at the next level, maybe get an education out of it? I mean, was it gradual, or did it just hit you all of a sudden? You're getting offers and interest from colleges.
I think for me it was a little more gradual. I got my first state finals when I was 12, and I was a distance swimmer. Distance swimmers are the ones that aren't quite good enough to win the shorter races, but they're willing to kind of duke it out and keep battling to win their longer races. So that's kind of where I got my first success at the state level. But yeah, in high school, I would say sophomore year, I was very aware that college swimming was something for me. My sister, I mean, the fans might not like hearing this, but my sister got a full ride to KU. So she went. By the way, that didn't go over well when I took the job at Mizzou.
Yeah, leave that one off out of the conversation. She just went, I can't remember where she went.
Hey, I've got her in Mizzou gear. In the
Okay,
last
that's
few
good.
years, we've got her.
That's
I
a
mean,
win.
she's probably gonna be upset if she hears this, but we've got her in some Mizzou gear. Certainly got her some of these Mizzou events over the years. But she was really talented. Got that full ride. Made NCAAs, swam in Olympic trials. But yeah, I mean, I knew I was good enough to do it.
And so then you went on to Northern Illinois.
NIU, that's
Yep.
right.
And you were voted captain,
That's right.
doing well.
Yeah, it was. See, NIU was. It was close enough to home where if I needed to get away, some laundry, all that good stuff, right? Hopped in a car, and an hour and a half later, I was back at home. But it was far enough away where the parents weren't going to just pop in and surprise me. So that was a lovely location. Swam at NIU for 3 years. They ended up, we were training my junior year, and I was voted captain, and we were getting ready for next year. And at that point is when, honestly, a lot of programs across the country started trying to decide where to make cuts, and swim and diving was one of the programs cut at NIU. So that was a unique experience that actually really catapulted me into this career of coaching.
Yeah.
That was part of the reason, because we decided we want to keep swimming. This is my senior year. We needed to create a club. We created one. I was the vice president. we get through the first week of training, there's no one there to coach. So my buddy and I started alternating coaching, and I decided that was kind of fun. It was fun coming up with sets, and that kind of opened the floodgates, so to speak.
Yeah, but before you started the club work, I mean, what was it like when you get told, hey, this program is no more? Emotional, or did you move on pretty quickly?
That's a great question. I've actually thought about this a lot.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with. I moved on very quickly out the gates.
Yeah.
Just kind of took it for what it was ready to move on. Was intrigued to see what life would be like as a just kind of an everyday student, not necessarily the schedule that you get as a student athlete. So thought it was going to be good, was open to it, not happy, not overly sad, just, okay, let's try this out. Within a month or two, I realized not enjoying it. And that's when it started hurting. And really the senior year was where it kicked in, thus why we started a club team.
Yeah.
So it kind of hurt over time a little bit more.
There was no transfer portal then.
Yeah.
No, and you know what it was? They offered to honor everyone's scholarship for the next year. So as a junior going to the senior year, it just didn't make sense for me to transfer. There was no portal, but some athletes, relocated and found a new home, but it made the most sense for me to stay.
Why is swimming the one that becomes vulnerable sometimes when schools try to make cuts? I mean, it not a major revenue generator, and I assume you need a pool, and so there's some expenses there too. Is that generally why when we see that schools have to make cuts, that's a program that sometimes is vulnerable there?
Yeah, Dave, you're hitting it on the head, and specifically at NIU, I actually knew from what I've heard over the years, right? The coaches were pushing for a new facility. And I don't know exactly what was said, but I can imagine something along the lines of, hey, we're not going to be competitive unless we get this.
Yeah.
And we had two pools. It was a 6-lane 25-yard pool and another 5-lane 25-yard pool. It was enough for training. It just wasn't necessarily ideal for the highest levels of swimming. And like you said, right, being a non-revenue sport, probably one of the highest expenses in insurance with the diving component, right? That's a big liability. And general just maintenance on pools and air handlers, air quality, all that stuff, it adds up. So I do think it's an easy target from that standpoint. But I do think, back in those days, those were the couple of years where the sport was hit the hardest.
Yeah.
Back in that 2002, 2003, 2004 time. And I actually love the story Mike Alden used to share, which is, Mizzou was in a similar place. They were watching Kansas, Iowa State, Nebraska, all doing this thing. And they're like, well, we can go that route. Or, you know what, let's build one of the nicest facilities in the country and let's double down. Let's make this sport great.
Yeah.
And I love that story about Mizzou.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tiger fans, say aloha to Hawaiian Bros, where the island-inspired flavors are positively delicious. You'll love favorites like huli huli chicken, luau pig, and the delectable Dole soft serve. Hawaiian Bros, just south of campus on Grindstone Parkway, or order at hawaiianbros.com.
So,
Go ahead, Laura.
So you got into coaching with the club team, found that you enjoyed it. So how did you take that next step after you left NIU?
Yeah, so I had some buddies, swimmers that I grew up with who finished college themselves and found some great opportunities. There was a swim club called New Trier Swim Club. The head coach at the time, Jared Schrader, offered me a job. Decided to do it for a year and a half as kind of a placeholder. Loved it way more than I could ever have imagined. I think the way I was coached was, back in those days, kind of get your head down, grind it out. I mentioned the distance swimmer, right?
Yeah.
You just plowed. And when I was introduced to a more elegant concept of let's focus on technique, let's focus on efficiency, we can have a little bit more fun with this. Not to say that my experience wasn't fun, but just try to make the whole experience a little more enjoyable. That's when I realized this is something I can do.
Yeah.
And the way it worked out actually was after a year and a half, I had an interview lined up with Abbott Labs. I remember this. And it was going to be a sales job. And I had a week before my interview. And the week before, I get a call from the head coaches at Northwestern University. And they had a club team out of there. I'm 23 years old. And they're like, hey, our head coaching spot opened up. Would you be interested? And I'm like, I think I would. I ended up interviewing, and I just realized maybe this was my calling. So that was the the fork in the road, so to speak, where I really committed all into coaching.
Yeah. So did you interview with the other job, or did you
I
you were
never
close
interviewed.
to?
No,
Okay, so you didn't even, it's not like you took
because
it.
I knew maybe 5 days out, I already interviewed for the coaching job. So at 3 days out, I was like, well, this is it. So I let him know.
Yeah. So what's the last job you had that didn't involve coaching swimming?
Oh, my
Did you have
goodness.
one?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. All right. I worked at a bar called Lord Stanley's.
Okay.
This is in DeKalb, Illinois. I was a kind of a bar back / bouncer out the gates, and
Bouncer. How about that?
Yeah.
I even did a couple shifts, the early shifts as a bartender, and that was not the lifestyle for me. So I got out of there. But that's the
Not your
last
calling.
job.
Okay.
Which, in fact, maybe you can argue involves swimming a little bit because the owner of the bar was dating the former swim coach of NIU.
Okay.
So,
there was a
so
connection.
there's still a connection there.
Okay. I
Oh,
see.
those swimmers' shoulders probably would have been intimidating at the
Yeah,
door.
yeah, that's right. We had to bounce a few people over the years.
That's good. Now, your brother Matt was on the team at Northwestern when you're
That's right.
there also?
Yes.
What was that dynamic? And he's 4 years younger than you? is
4
that-
years younger, three and 9 months or something
Yeah.
like that. It was fantastic, right? So I'm head coach of a club team, getting to implement all these new philosophies, these grand ideas that I had not really ever seen before. So
Yeah.
I'm having this really fun time in life where I'm just being creative. And then I'm volunteering with both men's and women's college programs, learning a lot from the college teams. For some reason, they let me work with the best swimmers all the time. So I got to work with my brother all the time in the power sets and the sprint sets. And yeah, I mean, his senior year, my 4th year of coaching at Northwestern, they got 6th place as a men's program
Wow.
at NCAA's. And that was a lot of fun, really great experience.
He goes on to an Olympic career, obviously.
Yeah.
Matt Grevers, if our listeners hadn't made the connection. So what was that like for you as his older brother? And I'm always curious about this because I have twin boys who are going into high school, and one may be better than something than the other one, and vice versa. And I'm always curious, like, how is that going to play out? Are there insecurities? Are there jealousies or anything like that? How did you perceive it at the age you were at the time, Matt's success
Yeah.
in swimming?
So, he was good young. So
Yeah.
he set his first national record, fastest 10-year-old in history in a 50 backstroke.
Wow.
Wow.
So he did that at 10 years old. So at that point, I was like, 13, turning 14. And, he's already closing in on me.
Yeah.
Right? He was already coming for me.
Wow.
And I think it was just so fun as a family. We just celebrated that really well. I had my own certainly successful high school career. I think my highest achievement was 5th place at Illinois High School State, and that was great. But my brother was already so good before he stepped foot in high school. He made the Olympic trials at 13 years old,
Wow.
right? So by that point, him making it and me not, we'd already identified, okay, maybe this is the horse we want to back right now. I had not completely given up on my own career, right? I was very excited for a successful collegiate career, but you knew there was something really special
Yeah.
with my brother at an early age. So it was easy. I guess I'm lucky that he was so good and so young. I didn't think of it as competitive. I just realized, boy, this kid's awesome. Let's support this.
Yeah. Yeah. Did he swim? So the Missouri Grand Prix was here,
That's right.
and I covered it because I was at the Columbia Tribune at the time, and it was one of the coolest things I've ever covered because you're just standing there on the pool deck, and oh, hey, there's Michael Phelps. Hey, there's Dara Torres. Was he there?
So he did
he
the
swim in
few. The one where Michael Phelps set the world record, Natalie Coughlin,
She was here. Yeah.
those are the 2 world records set in our pool, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool. Actually, part of the reason why we got a new scoreboard because Natalie set the world record in lane 8, and she couldn't see that she set a world record.
wow.
And Mike Alden heard that, and he's like, "Get a scoreboard up over there." Pretty cool. But my brother started coming when I started coaching,
Okay.
right? So that's where he realized, what a great pool we had, and I think there was some overlap with some of those athletes
Yeah.
that you just shared during that time. But the big one was I'm not sure if you're getting to this, the proposal. Is that something you're aware of?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I kind of read something about that, but I was gonna let you go there.
I was not, but I would like to hear about
so
this.
yeah, I can't remember. I'm thinking this is probably my 2nd year at Mizzou, so 2011-12.
Yeah.
So we're probably hosting back then it was called Grand Prix in February or so. And my brother was ready to propose, and he started coming up with ideas, And one of them was like maybe doing it around a competition. I'm like, well, we're hosting this big meet.
Yeah.
Would you be interested in doing it there? And he goes, yeah, let's do it. I started getting some legwork done with the rec center, right? So I tapped into them because one, they were technically the host venue, and they had people that were in place that could help with music, that could help with the announcement, that could help get the people in the right place. So the original plan was Annie, his now wife, Annie Grevers, Annie Chandler at the time, was to swim the 100 breaststroke, and my brother was going to give out the awards for the 100 breaststroke.
Yeah.
So she goes to race. All she has to do is get top 3, and then she hits the podium. He's got the ring in his pocket. She races. She gets 4th.
Oh, no.
So he has to give out the awards with the ring in his pocket, and we don't know what to do. What's plan B? Well, I had a great relationship, as I said, with the rec center, and I talked to Carrie Stuber, was one of the lovely young women who were working in the rec center who had some pull, and she convinced Annie to give out the awards for the 100 backstroke. That's Matt's primary race.
Yeah.
And she was not happy to do it. She was reluctant. She didn't want to do it. As a matter of fact, she was ready to go up in her swimsuit and just knock out the awards in swimsuit. And luckily, Carrie was able to convince her to put on a warm-up jacket and a towel and be a little bit more presentable, handing out the awards. And the way my brother will share it is, this is an Olympic gold medalist in the 100 backstroke. In 2012, he won the gold, almost set a world record that year. He was so nervous. So this is, 10 months after the Olympics, 9 months after the Olympics?
Yeah.
He was so much more nervous before that 100 backstroke at the Mizzou Grand Prix than the Olympics because he knew he had to go top 3 in order to set up the opportunity to propose to her. He ended up winning it. Nice. He just missed the pool record by like a 10th. Like he crushed it. So the adrenaline, it was good for him. And, Annie went up there, gave him an award. He kind of grabbed her hand because she was ready to walk away.
Right.
The other two kind of dispersed, and that's when he popped the question. And it was such a big deal because it ended up being a few days before Valentine's Day.
Oh, okay.
So he ended up making the ESPN top 10.
Okay.
Oh.
And it blew up. And these two are in my house, and they wanted to stick around for another week just to hang out, right? Hang out with bro. It was fun. Yeah. But they ended up having to lie low because the Ellen show was coming after. I mean, like, you name it. Like, everyone wanted a piece of this really fun moment because it just hit at the perfect moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. Good for Mizzou branding, too.
It was. Yeah. It was fun. It was good. It was good. They got some great photos out of it, out of the whole, the rec center had a photographer there. The announcer had a song lined up, and I mean, it was good. It was really awesome.
Did the other two swimmers know what was going to happen? Did they know to split?
If you go back to the video, and it's funny because there's a whole video that was up on YouTube for years. But I kind of walk by and get the two out of there. I move them out. And you can see me in the background waiting for the whole thing to happen. And, after it went down well, I was ready to go hug my now soon-to-be sister-in-law. And someone runs under my arm and steals my hug. And that was something I got razzed for about half a decade. It was good. It was good.
I just had one more question about Matt. What was it like for the family when he is competing in the Olympics? And was it Beijing and London?
That is correct.
And did you guys go? Or
so my folks went to Beijing. We looked into tickets and hotels, and it was from over here. And this is, internet's a little bit more in its infancy. And Beijing maybe didn't have hotels readily available online. So we were looking at $600, $700, $1,000, $1,500 a night for hotels. And we're like, we can't do that. Later find out we would have found something for under $100 a night if we went out there. Yeah. You just didn't know.
Right. Yeah.
But my parents were there. That was awesome. That's where he got, some pretty awesome hardware early in his career. But London was the big one where he got that individual gold medal. Mm-hmm. I was absolutely there. The whole family was there, and that is a very fun experience. I was actually sharing a room with his girlfriend at the time, soon-to-be fiance, just trying to save some money as we supported him. So that was a really great experience.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That'd have been great for the whole family.
Just
the fact you can celebrate it.
And the way, and maybe I'm giving away too much here, but the way NBC does it, right? Like, they know what athletes are keyed up to do well.
Yeah.
They reach out to the family, says, "Hey, would you like these lovely seats?" And they have them set up because they know their cameras are going to be
Yeah.
on that
Yep.
seat. And it's really fun moments where you can see how happy the family was. We can go back and watch those videos and just watch my
Yeah.
parents and Annie and my sister just celebrating like nuts. I was somewhere different. I ended up like in the media area. It was weird how I got there, but it was fun. Good memory for me nonetheless.
Yeah. Yeah. Your career then, how do you go from Northwestern to Mizzou?
So my brother, this entire time after Northwestern, through actually former Mizzou assistant coach John Ponce, was introduced to the coaching staff at Arizona. He really enjoyed his recruiting experience with Arizona at the time, and the head coach Frank Bush offered him a spot to train with them. So he still lives in Tucson, Arizona, but the connections that he established right with that coaching staff transferred over to me. So I'd go visit, and the staff loved me. So they'd let me hang out on deck for 1 or 2 weeks a pop, just learning. I'm a young club coach, and I'm just learning from this team. They won NCAAs for both men and women in 2008, I think it was 2008. And Greg Rodenbaugh, who was assistant coach there at the time, pardon me, sorry. Greg Rodenbaugh, who was an assistant coach at the time, got offered the head coaching job here at Mizzou, and he had observed me throughout my career and the success we've had with our athletes at the swim club out in Northwestern, and he called me up, offered me a job. I said no the first 3 times. On the 3rd time, he convinced me to at least have a conversation at the national meet coming up in Irvine. Man, he got me out there. He had a call set up for me with Sarah Reisman, deputy AD at the time, I think. And I didn't even agree to this. He's just like, hey, you got a call tonight at 6 p.m. our time. And of course, I crushed the interview because I didn't care.
Yeah.
I was very comfortable, carefree. And and then over the course of that week, I realized, man, maybe I got to check this out. And then I took the trip to Mizzou, 2010, August 2010. And boy, did this place blow me away. It was just gorgeous. The city of Columbia, the drive-in, beautiful, right? And then I started to see the Matsy and the rec center, and I was like, this is a no-brainer. So got me here and been here ever since.
Yeah.
Where did the hesitation come from the first 3 times?
So as a head coach, I I just bought a condo in downtown Chicago. Honestly, just finished redoing the kitchen. I it was 2 years there. I just myself did the whole kitchen. Life was good. I was, a 28-year-old guy living in downtown Chicago with a lot of friends and family nearby. And, the idea of giving up the head coaching was a little intimidating at first because I had so much fun innovating and coming up with a different style of approaching this sport. But luckily, Rhodey showed me all the best qualities of himself and everything this program had to offer and won me over time.
So then in 2017, you're named interim coach.
That's right.
Yeah. Program was dealing with some adversity.
Yeah.
Some things happening. Can you talk to us about that and what that transition was like?
Yeah, I mean, it was a challenging time just in the fact that, right, everyone's following the procedures and process that the Title IX office, back then it was what it was called, had in place. We wanted to be respectful of doing everything correctly. A lot of limitation on the communication we could have with the head coach at the time as far as anything related to work, right? So it was a hard time in the fact that we had ideas of what we want to do, but we also wanted to honor the whole philosophy that was put in place. Does that make sense? We wanted to carry the team philosophy, the championship lifestyle, so to speak. We wanted to honor that throughout that season, while at the same token, as interim, I wanted to put my own little, touch on it all, and ended up being a great season, right? Our men got second place that year at SECs. They swam inspired, right? And sometimes that happens. And I was very fortunate to have a wonderful group of assistants and athletes who took ownership over the process and decided to really go all in on a season that some people could have just said, what's the point, right? This is too hard. I don't want to deal with it, or just kind of shut things down. That was not the case. And that's actually where ZOU-STYLE kind of was founded. We came up with, at that time, called it The Process. And we had 6 questions, and we worked our way through it, and the team just brought intention and focus and positivity to every practice, and it turned out to a great season. But yeah, throughout that whole year, right, the investigation lasted, I think, a good 6 months or so.
Yeah.
So by the time the dust settled, all the assistants were gone. Coach Rodenbaugh was starting to look at SMU, and I had a great opportunity to step in here at Mizzou. Ended up seizing it and built the staff up, and it's been a learning curve ever since. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, after year 5, you settle in a little bit. It does take time.
Sure.
Being
Sure.
the head coach, it takes time. That experience, especially going through something like COVID and all that stuff, it was a challenging introduction to this specific part of the profession. But man, I think I'm so much better for it now.
This episode of Mizzou Storytellers on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast is brought to you by Sophia's and Addison's Restaurants. Sophia's and Addison's Restaurants are great local spots to visit before or after all Mizzou home games. Addison's has 2 locations in Southwest and downtown Columbia and features over 20 beers on tap, including local brewers and, of course, their famous Nachos Bianco. So remember, before or after the game, stop by Addison's.
Go back to when they let you know, hey, you're going to be promoted full time to the head coach after that interim season. What was that? Was it a meeting? Was it a phone call? What was that like?
It was a meeting because of my uncertainty, I had to explore all my options.
Sure. Yeah.
So I was looking at other positions, and I let the administration know, hey, I have a trip. I'm going to go out to this program, look at an opportunity here, and they're like, okay, no, hold on. And I think within several days, a week or so, I had a meeting with Jim Sturck, and we started hashing out the details, and I'm very grateful that I was entrusted and empowered to take over the program.
Did you feel like you were auditioning that interim year, or not
no,
consciously
I was surviving. Well, I mean, just for the story's sake, I was just finishing up a degree here at Mizzou. I graduated that December as now interim. Had my first child that January, and obviously a lot of turmoil and turbulence that we had to deal with as a program. So I was just surviving.
Yeah.
And I think actually on that note, that sets me up for success.
Sure.
Worrying about an audition or trying to impress a boss, that has not worked for me.
Yeah.
When I just focusing on the team, the athletes, the process, that's where I thrive.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I do my best.
It's kind of like your initial interview then with Sarah Reisman.
Yeah, right? Just hey, going with it, go with the flow, survive, and it'll be all good. It'll be all good.
Can you describe ZOU-STYLE to us? How do you define it?
So it's really evolved. So originally it was a process, 6
Yeah.
questions. What do you want to accomplish? Why do you want to do it? What will it take? What are obstacles can get in your way? What can you do right now? And then the 6th question was, are you willing to do this? Kind of obvious, more implied, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
It's more involved into it's just a cultural piece now. So yes, it involves a process and goal setting and all that, but we took a step back and we used to call them mental performance classes. So every week I commit 1 hour every single week to bringing in a sports psychologist or mental performance coach. We'll do some vulnerability exercises. We'll obviously educate them with knowledge to give them a competitive edge from a sports psychology standpoint. But it's really evolved into this culture piece, right? So that's ZOU-STYLE now. It is, obviously I freestyle is one of the strokes.
Yeah.
Originally, man, Tiger Style. We're like, that would be a good name. We'd love to go
Take
Tiger.
in.
But Coach Smith had that one coined for a while. So, we played around with some different names, and ZOU-STYLE is the one that stuck, stuck. Football stadium, the zoo, right? It's pretty much up there. Mizzou's fun. We landed with that name, and it's continued to evolve ever since. But it's specifically everything that involves our culture, the way our athletes communicate, the way they interact, the way they support each other in practice. So if you go to a swim meet with Mizzou, you are very aware that Mizzou is there, more so than any other team.
Yeah.
And other teams will admit to that. Our presence is well known, and that's part of our process. That's part of our culture.
How so? Like, how describe that?
Great question. It starts from the moment we step on deck. They are hooting and hollering. They are making noises. Other teams refer to them as annoying noises. but our presence is known just from the way the athletes step foot on deck. Even when they're in the water swimming, they are loud, boisterous, right? But specifically during a meet, it's the pre-session cheer that every team knows Mizzou is going to do. We do it every time. You go to our website, I'm sure you can find a video of it somewhere, but it's a fantastic cheer that they did before I arrived.
Yeah.
But that sets the tone. Before every single race, you'll hear in either for the men's race, it'll be Tigers 2-time, and then they go hoo hoo, right? The women say Lady Tigers with some claps. Post any race that has some success, they are screaming MIZ. We are not about getting the other team's face. We are about celebrating our success and lifting each other up, pouring it back into your teammates in the program. So that's a good example of just how loud and present we are.
Yeah, that's awesome. Swimming is so unique because it's, kids grow up playing as an individual, competing as an individual, but then you get them here and you're like, no, this is a team here. And you have to retrain the mind a little bit they got to care about how they're doing on their own, but also there's a team concept that may be foreign to when they first started.
Without a doubt, and it's a case-by-case scenario, right?
Yeah.
Some kids are coming from a program where they were the head honcho and no one was close to them. That's the bigger education piece. When someone's coming out of a bigger, more successful program, some of that foundation's already been laid for them. But no, that's, we are all in on culture from day one. We're actually going to have our first meeting on August 7th or 18th. Season starts August 19th, first day of classes. We're training. And we are going to be meeting every single week, working on this piece, educating our newcomers, on the expectations and just how much we support one another.
Mm-hmm.
Transitioning into the position that you have to your head coaching position, the way that you did, how long do you feel like it took you to get to this point? To feel like
I'm still getting to the point. No, I mean, it took all 4 years to really get to the place where I think I finally had a little comfort and confidence. I really feel the most grounded I've been by a lot right now. So it takes time. It takes time. One of the things I've learned over the years is if you ever stop trying to evolve, if you ever stop trying to take in the information and acknowledge where you're better, where you can improve, and constantly evolve. And I guess my point is, I have learned that you can never just settle or think you're where you need to be. We've learned that we are always taking steps forward, always. And that knowledge, I think, has helped me relax and settle a little bit more because I've acknowledged that I'm never just it's smooth sailing from here.
Yeah.
That does not exist.
Yeah. You
will always be trying to outwork your competition in every regard, and that knowledge has provided me with confidence.
Yeah. Andrew, tell us about your couple of Olympians that will be competing in Paris.
Yeah, we got two, and it's really exciting. Mikel Schroeders, he's an Aruban. I've actually had the privilege of representing Aruba as a coach at multiple world championships. But Mikel's about to embark on his third Olympics.
Awesome.
So,
yeah.
It's crazy to think that when he arrived on campus, he was 16 years old.
Man.
Wow.
He turned 17 that September. Wow. So we got to spend 5 years with him. I had a lot of success over those years. He ended up trying something out in Germany. Didn't work. Landed in a club team in France called Marseille and has had a wonderful career since then. So his first Olympics, he's kind of feeling out. These Olympics, we anticipate Mikel will be getting at least a semifinal, which means top 16, which means a second swim. Potentially a final, which would be top 8. That'd be a third swim.
That's awesome.
That'd be a huge deal. For an island out of the Caribbean, that would be a really big deal, and he is more than capable. Because of Mikel, we were introduced to a young man named Clément Secchi. So Clem ended up swimming for us last year. Well, I guess at this point, almost 2 years ago, over a year ago, 2 years ago. And they were on the same club team. So that's how Clem heard about us. So we were able to convince him to give Mizzou a shot. Had a very successful year, SEC champion. Yeah. We coached him up through last summer. And he was presented with the opportunity to stay here or potentially move back to France. And it was challenging. You never want to tell a swimmer to go, but we saw the opportunity to say, hey, you're probably better suited to get to your home country, where the Olympics are going to be held, acclimate, get accustomed to that time zone, and set yourself up for not only a great Olympic trials, but a great Olympics. And, he had the opportunity to go back to his club team, and he qualified in the 100 butterfly with a 51.1, that's a time that could absolutely get that third swim I was talking about. And he gets to do it in his home country. That is such
That's
a
amazing.
special deal to get to represent your country in the Olympics when it's being hosted at home.
Yeah.
So, yeah, these two are set up for an incredible meet. We're very excited to support them and watch them. And I've had some fun conversations with both in the last couple months just because it's an exciting time for them right now.
Yeah, I can imagine. All right, changing gears. You got to tell us a little bit about the family.
Yeah.
Tell us about your wife and then your kids.
Yeah. Unbelievable wife. I certainly out punted my coverage on this one, but
Harriet.
Harriet
Okay, we got it.
Harriet Grevers.
What's the swimming version of that analogy?
I went out fast. I guess I went out too hard and died. I don't know. Swam the race that I wasn't capable of. I don't know. But she very lucky that I met her through a friend. I just happened to be back in Chicago for the holidays, right? And this is over a decade ago. But met her, was smart enough to ask for her number, was even smarter and asked her out for a couple dates, and we did the long distance thing for a year and a half. She lived in Chicago at the time, and you know, through that kind of adversity, you know, doing a long distance thing like that for a year and a half, you really can strengthen a relationship. So I'm a lucky man. Convinced her to come to Mizzou or move to Columbia. We got engaged. She moved to Columbia, and she is a city gal.
Mm-hmm.
Getting her out of Chicago and into. By the way, I wasn't even living in Columbia at first. The year she moved here, I was living in Fulton.
Okay.
I was living on a lake. It's called Reed's Lake. And I mean, there's 5 houses around it within a mile. I mean, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
So I brought her into probably the most challenging circumstances you can imagine, and she survived it and still loved me through it. And you know, now she loves. I mean, Columbia is just a magical place to raise your family, right? So we have a 3-year-old Otto, and a 5-year-old Atticus, and she is the most amazing and wonderful mother. She gives me every bit of motivation and knowledge to make me a better father. I'm so lucky that I can follow her lead, and yeah, we're raising an incredible family here in Columbia, and it's hard to imagine being anywhere else. It's just a magical place for where we are at in our lives.
It really is. How do you come up with Atticus?
Well, yeah, I mean, you obviously got the connection
know the reference,
to Kill Mockingbird. You know, Atticus Finch, right? He's arguably one of the greatest heroes in literature, right?
Yeah.
It's really an impressive human being. We were having a hard time with names, really hard, to the point where I think it was getting frustrating. We'd been throwing around names for over a month, and nothing was sticking. Nothing was enjoyable. And, you know, it was one of those days where she was throwing names, and I was just annoyed. I'm like, no, right? I just went, and then she said Atticus. I go, you know what? That's kind of, why do I know that name? Right? And then it dawned on me. I'm like, oh my goodness, yeah, this is an incredible name. We did a little more research, and yeah, just such a strong name. And boy, does he fit it.
Oh yeah,
it is his name. He should not be any other name. That Atticus is, he's a real spitfire and really a kind, thoughtful human being. So we're very lucky.
That's awesome. All right, should we go into our rapid fire?
I think so.
Okay, we are going to alternate on these.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll do the. How about I do the odds? You do the evens.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, we got to plan this out.
All right.
Okay. All right. Best meal in Columbia, not necessarily a restaurant, but the best meal in Columbia.
Boy, I just had it the other day and I really liked it. Flat Branch has a Reuben, but with turkey.
Okay.
And I loved it. It blew me away. That was fantastic. I mean, it's hard to beat, you
can have more than
Shakespeare's, right? But like, yeah, it's good.
one. Okay, good answer. Original answer.
Favorite vacation spot?
The best I've ever had was Iceland. That was just me and Harriet.
Oh,
We haven't,
wow.
although I think it'd be a great spot for the family. But that was a vacation that blew me away. I came in with low expectations, and my favorite vacation to date. Would recommend that for any human being.
That was like the go-to place a couple years ago. Everybody was going to Iceland.
I had some friends.
And we did
that
the whole
went there.
trip. We
Yeah.
drove around. We did camping. We had a tent that was not quite waterproofed enough. That made for some additional adventure and the whole ordeal. But that was unbelievable. It was amazing.
Yeah. Okay. What's your go-to move off the diving board?
I mean, I'm going for splash, right?
Okay.
I'm going to do a nice can opener, see how many people I can get wet on the side. Yeah,
Okay,
for
good
sure.
answer. I thought you were gonna say some fancy dive.
Nope.
but
I
I could
know.
not.
Last time I tried 1.5, I hurt myself. Like, that was a bad idea. So
Yeah.
we're sticking to splashes.
Producer Steve, who did we have in here who was a diver? Oh, Shannon Welker was a diver.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
I learned that here on the podcast. How about that? You can have him out there. Maybe.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
divers a little bit.
You know, we brought it up more than one occasion. I think
Okay.
it's time to take action.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, I would love to see that
Yes,
sports
let's-
crossover. I
yes.
would like to see the swimmers and divers in the gym
Yep.
and the gymnasts and their
Our,
coaches. in
they're
the
just
pool.
going to get stuck in the foam pit. We're gonna have to...
We'll sell tickets. Come on,
Let's do it.
revenue, baby. Come on.
All right. Bucket list item that you would like to cross off.
I guess traveling. A place I really want to go is Italy. I haven't done that yet.
Any specific spot?
Yeah, Rome. Definitely want to see Rome and everything around there. So that's probably it for now. I'm not an adrenaline junkie or anything like that. So that sounds
enough.
fun
No
enough.
skydiving?
Yeah.
No
No,
bungee
I mean, I don't
jumping?
think I can do it. I don't even think I could do a hot air balloon. I
Really?
don't think so. I'm too afraid of heights.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
No, producer Steve agrees.
Nope, not for me. Not for me at all. All right, best concert you've ever seen?
U2. It was in back then. It was called Conseco Fieldhouse. I don't know what it's called in Indianapolis now.
Indy, yeah.
But it was a great venue. I was up front. Bono grabbed my cell phone
Wow.
for a moment. It was fun. It was pretty cool.
Did he give it back?
Yes. He was. It's a part of the show where he like talks to someone on the phone, and I had my
okay.
sister on the phone. But as it got passed up, it hung up.
Oh.
It wasn't perfect, but it was still awesome.
Oh, that's a great story.
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. All right. Well, the final ritual is you got to put your picture up here, and you got to do it yourself.
Okay.
So you got to come on up. We've got our wall of fame here.
Anywhere up there?
Anywhere you want. Oh, and I just here your thumbtack just fell out. We found an action picture of you. I'm not sure who you're working with there, but you're showing some technique off.
technique.
Now that thing is very temperamental, so it may fall.
Just enough to keep it up there.
Yeah, there we go.
Got it.
Awesome. Well, Coach, this was a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and I hope our listeners did too. But we wanted to get you in here for sure, tell your story, and it's a good one.
I really appreciate you both having me on.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
All right.
My pleasure. MIZ.
ZOU.
This episode of Mizzou Storytellers on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast is brought to you by Raceline Alternative Energy. Raceline Alternative Energy is working for a better future in rural Missouri. They are working to restore millions of acres of native prairie plants, which can be harvested in to produce highly valuable clean energy called prairie power. Visit them online at racelinealternativeenergy.com.
Well, I learned a lot from Coach Grevers. He's not somebody I know very well. You know him a lot better than I do, but it was really great to hear his story.
Yeah, I just and that's just from my position and what I do.
Yeah.
You know, spending time with him and his alumni, and he has some pretty notable alumni.
Absolutely.
So I get to hang with him. But it's, you know, swim and dive is a sport that doesn't get as much attention as some.
Yep.
And so it was really cool to learn more about his story and how he got to where he was and
Yep.
kind of a non-traditional way.
For sure. And sometimes I feel not bad for the swim program, but they're separated because they're not in our building over at the arena, and they're over on campus in an amazing facility, but they are just kind of physically separated from the rest of us. So it was, I'm glad we got him in here and talk about the program. And you know, they do a really great job in a tough league. I mean, SEC swimming is no joke, and
Oh, yeah.
they've done really good things on a national level, and he's got a great personality. It's fun to talk to him about, you know, just the program at large. And I also I wasn't sure his relationship with Matt, so I didn't want to like go too deep into it. But I love the fact how much he celebrates his career, and it's not like there's some envy or jealousy or anything like that. He was
No.
diving right into that conversation.
And he, you know, he realized early on that his path was going to be coaching.
Yeah.
You know, and just to have that opportunity to work with your brother,
Yeah.
to work with an Olympian, you know, if you at that time a future Olympian, and to see that potential and be able to be with him throughout his journey to get there.
Were either of you in Columbia when we had that Grand Prix when Michael Phelps was here?
No.
2008?
I think it was 8.
No.
No.
I was here at the Tribune, and it was like a 4-day event. It was a huge deal because the Olympics were just coming up, I guess. And Michael Phelps swam every day, and he did media every day, and it was like it was amazing. Dara Torres was here, Natalie Coughlin. It was like star-studded. There was like national media were here.
That would've
It was
been
really
really
cool,
cool.
and just in our pool, and he just raved the whole time about how great the facility was, and
We
he-
do have an amazing facility.
Yeah, he was famous, but he wasn't like, you know, 35-time gold medal winner yet,
Right.
however many he has. But it was really cool. I think it's probably the most famous person I interviewed or in when I used to do that for a job. I would think.
That's impressive.
I feel kind of bad to admit this. I didn't know that happened until today.
Yeah.
So
It was-
that's a good thing. With
Yeah,
this.
it was. There
Well,
wasn't.
if you weren't
you know what I
here,
mean?
why would
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I just remember like I was in an office over there at the pool, and there's a window, and I was on the non-pool side. Michael was on the bleachers and the pool side, and he was like eating a Chipotle burrito, and we're all sitting behind him. It was like, wow, he's just like us. He eats his burrito, but
He eats a burrito
poolside.
and then wins gold medals.
Yeah, it was great.
You felt like you were Olympic adjacent at that
Yeah,
point.
kind of. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I can do that. Yeah.
I practically know Michael Phelps.
I could eat Chipotle and then swim.
Yeah.
Is he gonna sit out for 20 minutes? You know, after you eat?
Yeah, I know. That's why I was curious. I'm like, what do the stars do? You know, when they're eating on the pool deck. Okay, speaking of famous people, one of my favorite experiences since I've taken this job involved you,
Yes, it did.
and it was back. I think we might have told this story in the podcast, but now we have someone here who was actually there, and I can confirm that I wasn't making things up.
No, we have the picture with your eyes closed.
We have the picture.
Forrest Gump to
I
photo.
just totally ruined the photo. It was my moment. So, in case you didn't hear the episode where we talked about, I think we talked about, I'm not sure. We go to Las Vegas for the College Football Hall of Fame ceremony. Jeremy Macklin was being inducted. You and I were there, and Blair DeBoard from our staff, and a few other people. Awesome event.
It was
just incredible event. And I would suggest anybody
First
out
class.
there that has the resources to go to that event.
And because anybody can go.
Anybody can go. I mean, you gotta pay a little bit to sit at those tables, but so cool. And like, just if you're a fan of college football, there's stars throughout the room, including a big one that night.
Yes.
And it kind of got out that Peyton Manning was in the room, and
It also got out that Dave Matter was a huge fan.
kind of a fanboy. Like, I don't have like those type of fanboy things for like anybody other than like Bruce Springsteen, except I've always loved Peyton Manning. I've never met him. I'm like, gosh, I love him on TV. He's a great player. You know, he's got twin boys like I do. So I'm like, oh, I would love to meet him sometime. Well, somebody in our group just happened to know him, and like, I'm gonna introduce you. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready. But I sucked it up, got some courage. We went and found him. I handed Loretta my phone. I'm like, take a picture if you can. And I ruined it by I was smiling because I was laughing at how silly it was. I'm 45 years old, and I'm like excited by this moment. And he was so much taller than me.
He was.
I mean, we were talking about how short I was earlier. He was. I would have, if you would have told me he's 7 feet tall, I'd have been, yeah, he seemed like he was 7 feet tall. And the picture, looks even taller.
And he was so nice, and he was so
So
friendly.
nice.
And the friend that was making the introduction for us said, "I'd like you to meet somebody." And Peyton said, "Oh yeah, sure." I said, "This is Dave Matter," and turns around, and it was just this reveal of a 45-year-old man. Like, oh, how old is he? Oh.
And all I said was, I'm a big fan.
He did.
Big fan. He's like, that's nice.
Cool.
And like, I don't know if he thought he was going to meet a kid or like, you know, like,
Did he try to sell you insurance or anything like that too?
but he's like, how's Missouri doing, guys? And we're like, it's great, but you're great.
Yeah. Can I have a picture? And it was. And we looked afterwards, and you just saw the adrenaline surge after we were walking away. He was so excited. And then he looked at the picture, and the other people that were
bummed.
with us, we were just laughing so hard because then he just deflated.
Oh, I
He's like,
ruined
"My
it. 'Cause
eyes are
I was laughing and
closed."
looked like my eyes were closed. I was a little puffy. I don't know why. In the moment, he looked great. I mean, you know, he looked like Peyton Manning in a tuxedo. Yeah. I want to go find him. Like, can we take another one? I kind of screwed that one up. But anyway, so I will forever keep that picture and know that you were the person that took it. So
It
great.
was. And we should add, though, this was after a couple of failed attempts at trying to make our way backstage and find him behind
And this was like a several hour expedition to try to find him.
Because it started with the rumor
Yes.
at the reception that he
Yes.
was there. And then eyes everywhere looking.
Right.
And we heard maybe he was backstage.
Coach
and so-
Pinkel was with him.
and
That's
I-
how it started. 'Cause
Yes.
His wife, Missy, came up and was like, oh, guys, did you know Peyton's here? He's back with Gary right
Yes.
now. We're like, damn, we got to go find him.
So then we think we can sneak backstage. I can't sneak anywhere. I'm 6'2". But, I thought maybe like nobody would notice us. And to be honest, nobody really said anything.
Yeah, they did. Well, when we initially went to go talk to him, he was sitting down, engrossed in a conversation with one Josh Heupel.
Yes.
And this was not too long after our football team kind of took care of Josh's football team. So I didn't think it was the best time for the Mizzou contingent to go up and I know Josh a little bit, so I just didn't think it was the right time. So we waited till after the ceremony and
So it was take 3.
take 3. It was great except for me ruining the photo, which we should put up as
You stood on
should put
business.
that up.
You
I-
stood
yeah,
on
we stood
business.
up.
I stood on business.
Stood on business.
And man, big fan. That's all I'll take away from that.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Well, we're full of stories today.
Yeah.
Producer Steve.
This is great.
We got proposal stories from Matt about Matt Grevers.
That was a really cool story.
It really was. Yeah, I don't think I was there for that. I would have remembered that, but I'm glad he got to tell. Normally, the tradition is we ask the coach how they proposed to their spouse, or their spouse proposed to them, and I guess we skipped that. We instead got his brother's story.
He-
We're just
Yeah.
keeping our ratio of just one proposal story per show. So we'll have to bring him back on and find out the other ones.
I'm
Part
sure he's got
2.
plenty of stories.
You know, last week we had Brock Olivo on, and I got great feedback from people that listen. Some like friends of mine who I haven't talked to in a while just were like, "Oh, I loved your podcast," but it was too short. They're like, "Can you get him back on for another hour?" Because he was that good.
It was, and it was probably the longest one we've.
Well, Brian Smith was pretty long.
That's true, but no, I mean, yeah, with that much stories and the history, and I mean his name's on the field, you know his retired number and stuff. If he's down for it, we're always down for it.
He was really good, and he had some great stories and so emotional. Like, people couldn't believe that he choked up a little bit a couple times, and it was twice. Yeah, we didn't get Grevers to cry today, but we got Brock Olivo a couple times.
Honestly, that's my favorite part of my job is hearing stories from alumni.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably hands down the coolest thing I get to do is just hear their stories and remember and just see them light up when they tell
Yeah.
stories.
And it reminds us that it's work for us, and we're here every day. And you cannot take it for granted,
No.
the opportunity, because for them, this is like the peak of their time as an athlete. For a lot of them. I mean, some have gone on to the pros and all that, but they still look back at it with such fondness, and being able to talk about it and relive it is pretty cool. And it's fun to like play a very small role in those moments, like you played that role all the time with the folks that you get to know and work with. But when I get to have a little part of that too, like at the Hall of Fame, man, it's really special. Yeah. Jeremy was like between when we did the Wall of Fame last year and then the Hall of Fame, the Wall of Fame at Memorial Stadium, man, that was I hadn't seen that side of him before.
No, and he, we were worried that he knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Because we had done the same thing for Coach Pinkel the year before.
Right.
So we thought he knew it was coming, and he absolutely didn't. And to have his teammates there pulling it off, to have Spoon and Chase Daniel up there.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
I got a kick out of it because we're walking down the field to go do it. And this is for people that forget, like we tore off the tarp off of the wall where it had Jeremy's name on there. And again, it was a surprise to him. I got to tell Sean Weatherspoon his role that he got to do that, and he didn't know yet, and he starts crying as I'm telling him that, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you're retiring his we're not retiring his number, but he's had to clarify that, but his name is going up on the wall." And it was, and it again, it kind of takes me back to how Andrew Grevers is so proud of Matt, and there's no like jealousy or anything like that. I didn't sense any of that with Jeremy's teammates. It was all about him and how he deserved it because he was a 2-time All-American, one of the all-time greats. Yeah. So who's next on the Wall of Fame?
No comment. No comment.
To be determined. You just have to keep listening, listeners.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe a nugget will fall. You never know.
I mean, I think we're adding some walls down there.
We're gonna have to eventually.
A couple $100 million worth of additions, so we'll have some space.
Yeah.
No news here?
No.
We don't have any? Okay.
I don't think I have.
I just thought maybe we'd use the podcast to break some news on some.
No, I don't think it was.
developments.
So the way the College Football Hall of Fame works is you can only have a player every other year.
That's
and
right.
The only reason we got 2 in a row because it was a coach and then a player.
So we can't have anybody this year.
But we could potentially have someone in 25.
Justin Smith is on
Correct.
the ballot.
He's
He's been
on the
on a
ballot.
couple times,
I think they said
but
this
not
is his
every
third
year.
time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he is a guy that I've made the case all the time. And have you gotten to know Justin at all in your role?
No, he's one
very
that I actually haven't
low
met
profile,
yet.
and he lives here.
Yeah.
And I know he's not listening because he's just super. He's incredibly low profile.
Prove him wrong, Justin. Prove him wrong.
He made a lot of money in the NFL.
He was a franchise player.
He was incredible. And I always contend that if he would have promoted himself a little bit more as a player, which was not part of who he was, he turned down a Sports Illustrated cover story once when that was a big deal. Like they wrote the story, but he had to do a photo shoot to put him on the cover. And he's like, nah, I don't want to do that. Can you imagine that?
Not today, no.
But I think he's a Hall of Fame NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame player, but I don't know if the name resonates enough with voters because just because he was never really in the spotlight a whole lot.
Right, just wasn't
But
in his wheelhouse.
such
to
a
do
great
that.
player here.
Yeah.
I think he's a more than deserving college football Hall of Famer. So we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
Maybe we'll go back to Vegas.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah, that'd be fun. It was a great event, and then I could have like a second shot with Peyton.
At least Peyton. Maybe there'll be somebody new by that point.
Maybe Peyton and Eli.
Oh, that would be great.
I've met Archie there.
So I got to, in passing, meet Eli when we went down to the Cotton Bowl Hall of Fame for Coach Pinkel
Yeah.
last year. Have you ever been to one of those?
No,
That was so Coach Pinkel and Tony Temple
that's right.
were going into that. There is, and I'm not going to do it justice, there is an all-girls school down there that's right by the stadium. And just historically, I don't know what the deal is. These girls, they train to perform, and they.
Oh, I watched it on TV. Yeah.
And those girls literally smiled the entire time. Like they did not waver, they didn't move. And so afterwards, and I wish I could remember who it was. We brought a few alumni with us. One of the alumni went and found one of these girls to ask them, "How do you do that?"
Yeah.
And they said they train smiling every day.
Wow.
Every day. But yes, I got to meet Eli Manning there because he was also going into the Cotton
Pretty cool.
Bowl.
Who
Hall of
had a
Fame.
good game for us at the Cotton Bowl last year? Cody? Luther had a touchdown.
Yep.
Maybe we can get another Cotton Bowl Hall of Famer someday.
That would be cool.
That would be great.
Cody, didn't he have close to 100?
He might have. He broke our rushing
Yes,
record
he did.
in the game. Yeah, because I remember I was Tony Temple. I was with Tony Temple, and he was keeping track of the stats because
Oh,
he
that's
wanted he
right.
wanted to make sure Cody not necessarily broke his Cotton Bowl record, but broke
our
the
record.
Mizzou rushing record because that wasn't his record. But yeah, that was really fun to be with him. They were like watching the box score, him and Chase, to see if he would get it. So that was just another great moment, cool moment, and great story. Are we done? Do we have anything else? We didn't get any questions this week. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
We got one, but we can't answer it.
We talked plenty.
We did talk
Yeah.
plenty. I didn't. All right, producer Steve, I forgot to teach Loretta the phrase at the end.
Oh, well,
We're just gonna have
nothing
to
like
add
winging
to
it. Let's do
So
it.
we added here. We end things here by saying everyone has a beautiful story to tell. You just have to ask the right questions. This is Mizzou Storytellers, and you say your name.
Loretta.
Full name.
Do I say? Oh, Loretta Jones.
I'm Dave Matter. We'll see you next week.